Hello, and welcome to our nursing news you can use at 5, Nursing Business and News. I'm Tina Baxter, and I'm your host. Welcome to those of you that are on our Nurse Shark Academy page on Facebook, and those of you that are on our Baxter Professional Services page, and those that are watching us on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in on this May 24th, 2023, this awesome Wednesday, as I like to call it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first affirmation. It says, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist." To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. This is from Oscar Wilde. Our next affirmation: try to be a rainbow in someone else's cloud. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. This is by Maya Angelou. And lastly, stop looking for happiness in the same place you lost it. Stop looking for happiness in the same place you've lost it. This is from our Inspirational Daily Calendar by Lauren Dratch. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on into the news. I'm going to skip the what I'm reading segment because there's a lot to cover in the news today, and I really want to have a discussion really on what's happening in nursing in the news. And then I also want to kind of see if I can do this. I'm going to try to share a little promo with you and see if I can do this. So this is the first time I've tried this on this platform. So let's see how it works. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Um, First off, I do want to say my condolences for the loss of Tina Turner, musical legend. We have lost her today. So that was my sadness for today. So anyway, not a nurse, but she means a lot to me. Hi, Asia. See you. Hi. So let's go ahead and get started in the news. All right. So here's our first story for today. Um, this is coming from nurse.org. And it's talking about this healthcare staffing executive accused of fixing nurses' wages. Um, deal with that later. Okay. So it says in Las Vegas, Nevada, a former health care staffing executive has been indicted for allegedly conspiring to fix nurses' pay. What's going on here? So, according to a press release by the Department of Justice, the federal grand jury indictment alleges that Eduardo Lopez and other co-conspirators participated in communication in meetings between March 2016 and May of 2019 that were intended to, quote, suppress and eliminate competition and control wages of nurses and other healthcare workers. Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division says wage fixing is a crime that deprives workers of hard-earned wages. At this time, there's few details about what's happening. It says a local news station, Channel 8, also reported unnamed co-conspirators are being charged in connection with the indictment. Fox 5 in Las Vegas says that Lopez worked for three different home health companies during the time of the allegations. He reportedly oversaw the recruitment, hiring, assignments, and retention of nurses and other healthcare staff at each company. The articles do not mention the name of the companies that he worked for. He is facing one felony count for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. This act is a federal statute prohibiting activities restricting commerce and competition in the marketplace. It bans businesses from colluding to form monopolies. Wage fixing constitutes a form of price fixing, which is illegal under the Sherman Act. So the penalty for this is 10 years in prison for each offense. A violation also carries a fine up to $1 million for individuals and $100 million for corporations. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if the corporations that this gentleman worked for also will be included into this indictment later. So it looks like there's other two wage fixing cases that were going on in Las Vegas, and this is pre-pandemic. So I find this kind of interesting that this is coming out. So the case then, it says, highlights the importance of fair wages for nurses and the impact of anti-competitive practices in the labor market. Wage fixing nurses by preventing them from earning a nursing fair wage. Nursing professionals can't negotiate for better wages when employers collude to control wages and suppress competition. This leads to reduced financial stability, which negatively impacts their personal and professional lives. Additionally, artificially low wages can make it difficult for healthcare organizations to attract and retain talented nurses, resulting in a decrease in patient care quality. So this is quite of interesting. And it says in a 2023 report, 52% of healthcare workers believe that they were being paid fairly. That's the lowest score of any industry in the study. Excuse me. So that's kind of interesting to pay attention to. So I just wanted to bring that story up because as we've been talking about wages and things that are happening in the world, this is kind of important to do with nursing. So let's go on to this next one. Um, this was happening in Cincinnati. And just keeping an eye on what's happening in long-term care and the issues that are facing the long-term care industry. And it says 3 Cincinnati nursing homes closed, 200 residents displaced as tensions rise to find them new homes. I find this is quite interesting that this is happening in Ohio as we've previously covered some other issues in Ohio, particularly in nursing home care. And we'll be getting into some of that again later on today. But let's go on. So it says 3 Cincinnati nursing homes are closing this month, forcing the relocation of roughly 200 elderly residents, many of whom who are anxious and unsure about where to go. According to Linda Kurdoff, Program Director and Long-Term Care Ombudsman at Pro Seniors, a nonprofit in Southwest Ohio, states it's happening very rapidly and it's very stressful for all of these residents. In effect, these buildings are going to be closed within a few short weeks by the end of the month, really. So very quickly, residents, families, they have to move. The facilities that are closing in Cincinnati include Highlands Post-Acute on Sherman Avenue in Norwood, Judson Care Center on Harrison Avenue in Westwood, and Advanced Rehab of Clifton Park operating at Solavita of Oak Park Pavilion on Oak Street in Walnut Hills. According to Kurdoff, it's a business decision. These are voluntary closures. What seems to be happening is that these corporations are right sizing their businesses. In all cases, they own multiple facilities. There's a lot of empty beds, and so they're shutting down and looking to consolidate. A spokesperson for Highland said, due to decreased demand for skilled nursing services in the region, Highlands Post Acute will be closing its doors. It is not feasible to run Highlands and another sister facility in such close proximity to each other. Our sister facility nearby, Norwood Towers and Delhi Post Acute, however, have been remodeled, and we're keeping our residents and staff together in those two facilities. CommuCare, based in Cincinnati, which manages the Oak Pavilion's closure, is stating, our company was most recently contracted with receivership to help manage the transition and facilitate the closure of the facility. We do not own the building nor the operation. We are working with an ombudsman who has been there daily and assisting in the safe transition of the residents. We greatly value residents' rights, and it is their decision to choose their next place of residence. So a lot of this is causing stress among the residents. And so a resident called, a family member called Tommy Scott, said he called Cincinnati police on Thursday during a dispute over where his uncle Norvin Johnson should move. Scott, who has power of attorney over his uncle, chose to take him to a nursing home where his daughter-in-law worked so she can watch out for him. But he said when he arrived to pick his uncle up, he was stopped by a CommuCare representative who wanted his uncle to go to an affiliated facility instead. Scott says, I was in his room. That's where I called the police from because they were giving us static. I was packing his clothes and things so I could get him out. According to Kurdoff, it said this should be happening with dignity and respect, and I think we're pretty far away from that. These aggressive admission directors are creating pressure and tempers are flaring. The police should have no role in this at all. It's unusual and unfortunate. Because the time frame is so compressed, families are anxious to visit and choose a new nursing home for their loved ones. Residents are very upset because they often don't have time to say goodbye to their friends or properly pack up their belongings, Kurdoff said. They're going to put them anywhere they want them, and no one is going to know where they are, according to Scott. Some of those residents there don't even have family, and they just do what they want to do with them. Some family members have called pro seniors in distress asking, quote, "Where is my father?" And they didn't even know, Kurdoff has said. Oh, my goodness. Tanya Jackson said her father, James Runyon, was moved out of Judson Care without their family's permission last week, despite her brother being his power of attorney. They found Runyon at another nursing home that she said was dirty, had rodents, and a leaking ceiling. His leg brace and wallet were missing. According to Jackson, she says, "We don't understand how he was even moved, noting that her father was recovering from a stroke and can barely write." Jackson says she has since moved her father to a different nursing home. Pro senior staff members are speaking to all displaced nursing home residents to ensure that they understand their rights, and they will follow up with them once they are relocated to see that their belongings have arrived and they are adjusting to their new homes, according to Kurdoff. She states, "It's already a vulnerable population. People should not be put under this kind of stress." As of Monday, Kurdoff said roughly 85 people remain at the three nursing homes that are closing, and she expects them to be moved into their new facilities by the end of the week. And so, my goodness, there's a lot into that. If certainly, I'd say look into this even further. But with these closures, and I understand from the business model understanding, you've got empty beds, you've got multiple facilities. Maybe you should close one and concentrate on doing the best for the existing facility. But it sounds like they didn't give them enough time to move, and they're just trying to get them wherever. And of course, they want to keep them in the system because that's more money in their pocket when they're already downsizing. So I get that, but choice, patient choice always comes first. So let's move on. I've got another story here. And this is actually coming from across the pond. This is from Nursing Times. And I just found this interesting. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but it says that this is actually a op-ed, and this person was saying, "I hope that actions forthcoming on menopause, suicide, and racism." He says, menopause, suicide, and racism, they are the three words that cut through to me most when attending one of the largest UK nursing conferences of the year. All three were the subject of motions debated and passed by the delegates at the Royal College of Nursing's annual Congress in Brighton last week. Pay and politics expectedly formed the backdrop to much of the discussion among union members, as did workforce shortages and other important issues facing nursing. It says, however, it says none of them are new, of course, and have been subject to recent coverage by Nursing Times, but all needs urgent action. On the subject of menopause and related issues, nurses described how lack of support for women's issues can destroy their career. Speakers said nursing staff were walking out of the workplace because employers do not do enough to support women's health issues like menopause, menstruation, and fertility. Unsurprisingly, a resolution was overwhelmingly carried asking RCN Council to lobby employers, ensuring that female employees are supported with specific women's health and well-being initiatives such as menopause, menstruation, fertility care, pregnancy, and childbirth. And it says, just going on, meanwhile, members of the RNC called for the introduction of a specific suicide prevention program for the nursing workforce across the UK. So I jumped over to this story is because I want us to get a broader picture that it's not just over here in the US that they're having these issues, but it is also in other places as well. It says, in an emergency resolution submitted at the conference, college members called for the implementation of an evidence-based integrated suicide prevention program. Okay. According to a foundation, The charity, the Laura Hyde Foundation, revealed that 366 nurses who used its services between a period of time last year had attempted suicide, which is a significant increase over the last year. And another emergency motion was submitted and overwhelmingly passed, which called on the governing council of the college to ensure that RCN is an anti racist organization. The debate was timely, coming just a month after the 75th anniversary of the arrival of Empire Windrush, which began the large scale recruitment of Caribbean nurses into the NHS. So I say this because as we go through this, these are some of the things that they're dealing with. There's more that's coming out, and we've kind of talked about this previously. And so I'll be coming to that in just a moment. So here's the next story. So you have this where we're talking, they want to introduce an RCN, anti-racist pop programming. So here we have. This is also coming. This is from Reuters. United Kingdom, Britain plugs nursing gaps with international staff amid WHO concern. And we previously talked about this, but I wanted to bring this up again because we're seeing more and more things happen. It says Britain recruited a record number of international nurses in the last financial year to plug hospital staffing shortages, with as many as 10% coming from so-called, quote, red list countries where health staff should not be actively recruited. Britain has long hired from abroad to staff its state run National Health Services, and its vote to leave the European Union in 2016 meant that the number of EU staff has dropped sharply in recent years. In the year to March, nearly half of the 52,148 nurses, midwives, and nursing associates who joined the British Register were internationally educated, according to the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Nearly 3,500 came from Nigeria, which is on the World Health Organization's safeguards list. The two biggest international contributors to British nursing workforce, India and the Philippines, are not on the red list. The WHO has warned that poor countries are increasingly losing healthcare workers to wealthier countries and has flagged concern over active recruitment in some countries. Jim Buchanan, senior fellow at the Health Foundation, said the numbers arriving in Britain from red list countries, notably Nigeria and Ghana, had gone up markedly. The requirement of WHO member states is not to actively recruit from these countries, but what the data can't tell us is how those nurses have come to be on the UK registry. Carolyn Waterford, Director of the Development and Employment at NHS Employers, said hospital trusts and others who hire staff in England's NHS have been told to work only with agencies that are accredited, vetted, and not operating in red list countries. The bit which has always been a bit more tricky is if individuals apply themselves, she said. The rules do not stop individuals based in red list countries applying for jobs in Britain, and while an agency may not actively recruit them, community links to people already in the country might mean people apply more from certain countries. Paul Wanyoni Simiyu is a nurse originally from Kenya who came to Britain 4 years ago. Kenya is on Britain's amber list, meaning any active nurse recruitment has to be through a bilateral agreement Britain has with Kenya. Despite that agreement, Simiyu estimates 90% of the recruitment of Kenyan nurses comes via direct application to UK jobs, adding that there often aren't jobs for them in Kenya. He founded Kenya Nurse to help train Kenyan nurses for English exams and advises them on how to process their registration. So you're seeing that there's this backlash and push, and it's not just for Britain, but it's also the U.S. and other countries like U.S., Canada, etc. There's this backlash of drawing nurses from poorer countries and to come to work here. The issue then becomes, well, if that person, that individual nurse, then has family that's here or friends that are here and they want a better life, they may also apply to come individually. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't want to say that it's a cookie cutter quick answer solution, but these are problems that we need to think of. And then overall, when you're looking at things like the RCN, looking at anti-racism legislation, and now you're importing nurses from other countries, you have to make sure that those policies are in place. And so this is some discussion. So those of you that are across the pond here and you're dealing with that, if you're watching, chime in and let us know how things are going and what do you think about these issues. So let's come back over here, back to good old U.S. of A, because I'm concerned about some things that I'm seeing, and so I want to bring this up. So there's a article from Ignite long-term care news, and it says underreporting of fall pressure ulcers, hospitalizations widespread in nursing home data. And so oftentimes people don't want to report things because they don't want to be penalized. So it says over 6 years 40% of hospitalizations related to major fall injuries that were found in hospital claims were not reported in facility level minimum data sets. Researchers at the University of Chicago found for pressure ulcer hospitalizations 33.3% were unreported from 2011 through 2017. Overall, the researchers examined records from 13,179 nursing homes and found that 131,000 long-stay residents had to be hospitalized due to either condition. Underreporting of those hospitalizations wasn't limited to a few bad actors. Rather, the study showed about 70% of nursing homes reported less than 80% of their patients fall in pressure ulcer hospitalizations. Lower reporting rates also were associated with certain racial and ethnic patient populations. According to author Prachi Sanghavi, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correct, underreporting of clinical events to CMS was widespread during the study period. Although CMS appears to recognize the situation, as evidenced by the lower weighting of quality measures in the ratings, the measures remain on public display. In other words, the quality measures are in limbo, but the public may be using these measures to make important life decisions. And so as we're seeing that, and I'm not going to go further into that article because of time, but you can certainly look this up. And if you want to know about it, let me know. I will certainly share it. But put that on the backdrop here, because then we have things like this happen. Nurse charged for involuntary manslaughter for Henry County jail death. And so we're seeing these backlashes. So in Henry County, Virginia, it says the Henry County Sheriff's Office says that months after investigation, the death of 42-year-old Bradley Stephen Hensley, a nurse, has been charged with involuntary manslaughter. According to the sheriff, on Tuesday, August the 2nd, Hensley of Bassett entered the Henry County Adult Detention Center and advised deputies of his pre-existing medical history. As an accommodation, Hensley was allegedly placed under direct supervision and regularly monitored by the WellPath medical staff. So on Saturday, August the 6th, 2022, Henley notified deputies that he was having difficulty breathing. Deputies alerted the WellPath staff on duty, and around 7:30 a.m., noticed Henley was lying in bed unresponsive. After attempts to communicate with Henley were unsuccessful, staff entered the cell and began CPR and an AED in an attempt to revive him. The sheriff said that around 7:36, the Martinsville Henry County Emergency 911 Center was notified. Now, wait a minute. Let's go back. So 7:33, so we can keep track of this. Wasn't breathing. 7:36, they called 911. 7:46, they arrived. They take him to the hospital where he passed away. Autopsy report reveals that he died from acute fentanyl toxicity with adrenal crisis due to congenital adrenal hyperplasia contributing. So during the investigation, camera footage was reviewed, and it was determined that the WellPath nurse, later identified as Deborah Sue Dameron, 56, allegedly did not perform the expected and required medical checks on Hensley. Investigators also learned that Dameron allegedly falsified Hensley's medical records to reflect regular rounds and vital checks. And this is why I wanted to bring this up, because as a nurse, there's things you have to be able to document and say that you've done those things. And if you document things fraudulently, falsely, it will be found out. There's video evidence to show that what she documented in the record did not happen, according to the investigation. And so I want to be clear, it's very important. And it says, although his cause of death included fentanyl, their investigation revealed that a lack of care contributed to his death. So they presented evidence to the grand jury, and Dameron was indicted for involuntary manslaughter. Kentucky State Police located Dameron, and she's being held in Pikeville, Kentucky, awaiting extradition as the investigation continues. The case has been forwarded to the Virginia Board of Local and Regional Jails and is pending final review. I say that because, again, this theme of adding things to the record where you shouldn't is coming up more and more. Because then we have this that happened, and I'm talking about these stories because I'm seeing nurses are being prosecuted criminally for things a lot more often, and we've talked about this. So then we talked about this a few weeks ago. Indiana nurse in mask avoids jail time with plea deal. This is back in Jeffersonville, and I just wanted to follow up on that story. Connie Sneed, 54 of New Albany, pleaded guilty in the Clark Circuit Court to a felony charge of knowingly or intentionally acting as a physician's assistant without a license. She received a suspended sentence of 540 days. And what she had done is that a gentleman in a nursing home had said that he did not want to be resuscitated and indicated that he did not want his oxygen mask on, and he wanted her to remove it. She proceeded to do that. However, she never got a physician's order to do it. And so what she had been charged with was acting as a physician or practicing medicine without a license. So she was fired in May 6, 2020, and she was determined to have violated the nursing home's policy and standard nursing practices by both administering and then removing the oxygen. Her nursing license has been suspended since 2021, according to this, and so she's not returned to nursing. But these are things that are happening, and I want to bring this out because nurses, we need to think. And these situations are happening, and we're getting put into these situations. This was during the pandemic. She also had permission from the family to do it, but we have to know what our scope of practice is. We have to practice within our scope. And the prudent thing would have been to contact the physician and say, he's on oxygen, he wants it removed. Can I have an order to remove his oxygen? Right. So, again, good for her that, obviously that she didn't have to do jail time. I'm happy for that. Because this is another case of a nurse charged with murder. And I'm just seeing this more and more, and I don't know if it's because I'm paying attention more and more, or are you also seeing that more nurses have seemed to be being charged criminally? But this one says nurse was charged with murder after intentional medical maltreatment and kills the patient. So this is in Seattle. We'll see. KIR 7. And it says, let me get down to it. Here we go. A former nurse in Lexington, Kentucky, was arrested in Kentucky on murder charges after investigators said she killed her patient by injecting him with a drug he wasn't supposed to receive. And a news release, the Lexington Police Department said Yvette Hunter, 52, was arrested and charged with the murder of 97-year-old James Morris. Police said Hunter, who was a nurse at Baptist Health Lexington, quote, intentionally performed actions of a medical maltreatment that led to Morris's death. Hunter allegedly requested lorazepam, Ativan, it's a brand name, a tranquilizer to calm down an anxious and agitated Morris. When her request was denied, Hunter is accused of withdrawing a vial of the drug meant for another patient and injecting it into Morris. When another employee saw Hunter inject the medication and asked what was given, Hunter allegedly responded, quote, something special. Now, we have reported on this before. It says that the Board of Nursing, Kentucky Board of Nursing, said that Hunter gave Morris food after giving him the medication. Approximately 30 minutes later, another nurse found Morris having difficulty breathing. The suspension order alleges that Hunter disarmed the oxygen monitoring system so that the alarm wouldn't sound. Additionally, x-rays found that Morris had inhaled food stuck in his throat, causing aspiration pneumonia. He died on May 5th with the cause listed as aspiration pneumonia. Baptist Health told AP that the Associated Press that the hospital fired Hunter that day and reported her to the Kentucky Board of Nursing. The Board of Nursing has suspended her nursing license. Morris had been initially admitted to the hospital for a slip and fall injury. Again, this goes back to scope of practice, and you just can't give somebody medicine just because they're being in pain and they're anxious. You have to get an order for it. And even if let's say she had gotten an order for the medication and she was allowed to give the Ativan, you have to monitor them after you give it. These are basic nursing things. And as nurses, we need to be very careful about what we're doing and know our scope of practice and what we're supposed to do. All right. So here's another case. And I just wanted to see what was happening. It says, this is coming out of Boston. New Boston nurse accused of breaking patient's fingers goes on trial. Which is really sad. Again, I feel for these nurses because in some cases it sounds as if they're purposely just targeting them. In other cases, it does sound like it's egregious. Again, these are things that they're going through court. We don't know. We're waiting for the outcomes of these trials and things like that. But this is what I'm seeing. So it says the former head nurse at a new Boston care facility went on trial this week, challenging felony allegations that she broke the fingers of a brain-damaged patient whose, quote, death grip was fixed around a call bell. Nancy Waller, 67, was a head nurse at Rose Meadows Farms in late December 2020 when authorities alleged she broke two of patient Stephen Hall's fingers. According to court filings, Hall had grasped a call bell in his left hand and refused to release it. Nurses feared he would put it in his mouth and possibly choke. Laura Ledger of Weir testified he has a death grip. Rose Meadow is a residential care facility for people with brain injuries. Hall, now 60, lived there after suffering a brain injury from an opioid overdose. Hall, who is from Manchester, had held several jobs before his injury, including a contractor, said his daughter and guardian, Christina Lally. Lally said Walker confided in her that she pried Hall's fingers from the call bell. Lally says she wants justice. As part of their investigation, New Boston police interviewed several Rose Meadows workers who told Waller told them she had pried Hall's fingers off the call bell. But Judy Weatherwax Knight, a New Boston EMT who was frequently called to Rose Meadows, said Waller would not break a patient's fingers. And so he says that he spoke in support of her, or she did. She said Rose Meadow handles a very difficult clientele with compassion. She says Waller retired but agreed to return to Rose Meadow during the height of the pandemic when regulations were constantly changing and the facility was under quarantine. Waller faces 2 felony charges, abuse of facility patients and second-degree assault. Each carries a prison sentence of 3.5 to 7 years. So according to this, in 2021, Waller agreed to a preliminary suspension of her license with the State Board of Nursing. Testimony focused on a fall that Hall took overnight on December 23rd after the alleged crime. And so according to this, the defense maintains that Hall's hand was injured in the fall. A licensed nursing assistant and another caregiver found Hall after the fall. He said he was fine, nothing hurt. Ledger and the LNA, Michelle Wright, both ran to the room when they heard a thump. They acknowledged not following proper procedures for reporting the fall. So again, that's a problem. They said that bruising and swelling in Hall's left hand became more noticeable over the next few days. Defense plans to put on an expert, Dr. Andrew Forrest of Concord, who is expected to testify that the fingers were likely injured in a fall from the bed. So the trial has been going on, and we'll see what happens. But this is again things that are happening in nursing where, you know, just because you think something happened, they're accusing nurses of things. I don't think that she broke his hand. I can't say. We'll let the evidence speak for itself. But again, we're seeing this erosion in the confidence of nurses. Okay, so let's go on to this next one, and then we're going to get into some great things. How about that? So here's this next story. It says AG Henry charges 2 nurses with neglect after a resident died at Dauphin County facility. This is coming out of Pennsylvania, out of Harrisburg. It says Attorney General Michelle Henry today announced charges against 2 nurses who neglected their duty to care for a resident who died after sustaining injuries at Spring Creek Rehabilitation and Nursing Center in Dauphin County. Deanna Hamilton, 64, of Dauphin, is charged with felony neglect of a care-dependent person and misdemeanor tampering with or fabricating evidence. Margaret Susan Nyes, 71, of Hummelstown, is charged with a misdemeanor count of neglect of a care-dependent, and Hamilton and Nyes were nurses at the facility in December 2019 when a male resident fell and was seriously injured. He was later hospitalized and died on January 1st, 2020. A grand jury investigation revealed that neither nurse followed protocol and how they responded to the man's condition. Hamilton is also charged with covering up the conduct by omitting and misstating information on the man's medical chart. According to AG Henry, the defendants were responsible for the safety and well-being of the residents under their supervision. They had multiple opportunities to provide this patient with the care he urgently needed, but failed to fulfill their duties as nurses and caregivers. Our office is committed to protecting the safety of seniors and care-dependent Pennsylvanians and will work tirelessly to hold accountable those who knowingly neglect vulnerable individuals. So according to the investigation in December 25th, 2019, and can I just say a lot of this is happening around the holidays and short staffing. Typically facilities are less staffed around the holidays. People want to be off, etc. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that as a prudent nurse, this is the time for you to really be watching what you're doing, right? There's those times when there's not a lot of staff, you better be dotting your I's and crossing your T's. So it says, Nyes, an LPN who was responsible for overseeing the nursing care for all residents on her assigned floor, was called to the man's room after staff found him on the floor. According to Spring Creek policy, an incident of this nature is considered an unwitnessed fall and required Nyes to document the incident and call a registered nurse to assess the resident for injuries and put in place specific monitoring protocols to check for latent injuries. So obviously, nurse comes to the assessment, and then you put in like neural checks and things like that. However, Nyes disregarded facility policy and directed staff to pick the man up off the floor without assessing him for injury herself, documenting the incident, or calling an RN. And so this is, again, where there's problems. You have to know what you're supposed to do and follow your policies and procedures. And so for nurses, I'm just giving you some background here, okay? I want to give you some background. And so this is why it's important that you do what you're supposed to do. So then days later, Hamilton, an RN, this is on December 29th, was working as an RN supervisor. She was responsible for nursing care for residents in her assigned building during her shift. Hamilton was called to the man's room after staff once again found him on the floor. Although several witnesses reported concerns with the man's condition, which included a visible injury to his head, Hamilton failed to follow established protocol to ensure that the man was properly assessed and monitored for latent injuries. He was diagnosed with a subdural hematoma before he passed away on January 1st. Both defendants were charged on March 24th. Nines was arraigned on the same day. Hamilton was arraigned on March 27th. Bail is set at $10,000, unsecured for both defendants. So again, these are things that if you need to do what you're supposed to do and document, and falsifying documentation gets you into more and more trouble. So let's get on to something a little bit more exciting. I've got a couple other stories here, but I think we're just going to move on from those because I really want us to talk about something good. So let's look at this story. And it says APRN chosen for NASA Mars mission. Exciting. So this came out May 23rd from nurse.org, and I thought this was exciting. And it says nurses around the country are doing some really amazing things. UC Davis Health Advanced Practice nurse Alyssa Shannon is doing something extraordinary. Shannon was recently selected to take part in NASA's Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog mission. Along with 3 other crew members, Shannon will take part in a 1-year analog mission that will simulate living on Mars. The 4-person crew will simulate everyday challenges of a real-life human mission to Mars, including resource limitations, possible equipment failures, communication delays, and other possible environmental stressors. Other team members include Kelly Haston as commander, Ross Brockwell, flight engineer, and Nathan Jones as medical officer. The team has 2 backups in case of emergency, Trevor Clark and Anka Salarayu. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Shannon will be working as the crew science officer, conducting quality improvement projects, providing data management and data analysis. She first heard about the mission in August of 2021 on the radio while driving to work. After doing a little research, she quickly realized that she fit all the criteria and decided to apply. As an APRN with experience in interventional cardiology and cardiothoracic surgery, Shannon will leave for the mission at the end of May and will not return home until July 2024. Shannon has extensive experience in a variety of fields. Prior to becoming a nurse, she was an elementary school teacher and continued her education, becoming a cardiovascular clinical nurse specialist with a minor in genetics from UCSF. So I'm just excited about this. I think this is wonderful, and I want to highlight and spotlight more nurses doing great things. So congratulations to her. And I think that's wonderful. Nurses can do so many different things. And this is what I've been telling people. So I'm excited about that. So she's our nurse making a difference, because I just thought that was just really cool. That was really cool. Okay. All right. So that's going to end our news segment for today. I think I'm done with the news, right? So I do want to try this one little thing. I'm going to see if it works. And let's see here if I can do this. All right. Present video file. Share screen. Okay, I don't know if that'll work. Let me see here. I'm going to see. I've never done this before, so let me see if I can share window. Or let me see. Present video file. Ooh. Wait, no, wait. All right. I think I got it. Thanks for bearing with me because I've never done this before. So I can put in a video file, and I want to make sure I get the right one. It's working! Check it out! Okay. nurses the confidence and skills to launch, grow. All right, I'm going to start it over. Here we go. All right. I'm not sure what. Oh, in the lives of those who succeed. There we go. Usually comes at the moment. Our purpose is to give nurses the confidence and skills to launch, grow, and scale their own businesses. What's a nurse shark? Okay, so according to the Oxford Dictionary, a shark is an expert in a specified field, hence the nurse shark, an expert in nursing. It's focused on building up nurse entrepreneurs and supporting small businesses. So where are you now with your mindset? Where are you now? So this is from Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. He says, a burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. Dreams are not born of indifference, laziness, or lack of ambition. Remember that all who succeed in life get off to a bad start and pass through many heartbreaking struggles before they arrive. The turning point in the lives of those who succeed usually comes at the moment of some crisis through which they are introduced to their other selves. So you may be at that point of existential crisis to where you arrive to your other self. And that's what happened in the pandemic for me. Because I realized that I wanted to help nurses more and more. Thank you, Camille. Camille says, wow. And so let's focus on your goals. What are you going to do? So stopping those negative thoughts is important because visualization failure is as effective as visualizing success. And a lot of times we let those fears take over. Remember, fear is that false expectation appearing real, right? We let those fears take over that says we're going to fail. So don't gear yourself up for failure. Only losers prepare to lose. When an individual is stuck in a losing mindset, failure and disappointment seem to follow them. Instead, visualize objectives and pursue them without restraint. When you visualize your victory, you don't have to constrict yourself to modest goals. Go ahead and let yourself imagine the fullest impact of your efforts. Why not? If you limit yourself in your imagination, you'll limit yourself in real life. That's from Don Yeager and the 16 Characteristics of True Champions. So let's focus on those goals. What is your objective? Okay. That was pretty cool. All right, so you're probably wondering why did I do that? That's our new promo for our event that's coming up on March the 30th or May the 31st. So that's going to be next month. And I've never actually showed a video during a live stream before, so you got to see me doing it for the first time. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to give it a go. And so I wanted to show that because it's a promo for what's coming up next week. We have an event, the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. Go ahead and sign up and register for that. It's free. But one of the things I wanted to do is to talk about nursing and to fall back in love with nursing. So it's our fall back in love with nursing event, and I just decided to put a quick promo. So what you actually saw was from our event last year, just a little clip of what was offered in our last event last year, and so I'm excited about that. So let me know your thoughts about the promo. I'm going to put it out there on our social media. Let me know what you think, but just wanted to share that with you. So thanks for tuning in. This is the 6 o'clock, and we are way past our time. But I thank you for allowing us to be here today and to share with you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and have a great night.